Serena, you need to go quickly. I suddenly snapped back to reality. The scene before me was so familiar. Was I reborn? My husband Arthur knelt before me, clutching my hand tightly, his face full of anxiety. Hurry and change your clothes. When the police arrive, it will be too late. In the last life, Arthur drove drunk, hit someone, and fled the scene, forcing me to take the blame for him. He used all kinds of PUA tactics on me, and in the end, I lost my mind, put on the clothes he wore when he had the car accident, and turned myself in at the police station. I originally thought that going to prison for him was a sacrifice for the family, for the sake of our child. But I never expected Arthur to be such a beast. While I was in prison, he schemed to divorce me and marry my best friend. Taking advantage of my imprisonment, he abused my daughter. The 5-year-old child was chained by the neck and kept on the balcony, living like a dog. That was a treasure I risked my life to obtain. Arthur, how dare you be so ruthless? Staring at the man before me, I wanted nothing more than to rush forward and tear him apart. Seeing that I didn't move, Arthur grew anxious and reached out to grab my clothes. I kicked him down. Damn criminal, go to jail. Arthur was stunned for a moment, then, realizing, he scrambled toward me using both hands and feet. Honey, you have to think about the child. Do you have the ability to earn money to support the child, to support this family? Am I the one who can't earn money? Clearly, my ability to make money is stronger than Arthur's, and my position in the company is higher than his. It's him, always telling me to quit my job and take care of the child at home. When I quit, he despises me for just spending money at home. Now that he's made a mistake, he wants me to take the blame. Such a scumbag deserves to go to jail. Arthur was still trying to brainwash me in various ways, and I could see him getting more and more anxious. I was worried he might go mad. This man was far scarier than I had imagined, so I decided to calm him down first. Honey, I'm going to wash my face and cool down. I'll be right back to change clothes with you. Arthur stared at me intently, afraid I would run away. When he saw me enter the bathroom, he didn't forget to remind me, hurry up. Okay, I said, then immediately turned around, locked the door, and dialed the police. In less than 10 minutes, there was a knock at the door outside. Arthur grew anxious. He pounded on the bathroom door frantically. Serena, come out quickly. I immediately stepped out of the restroom. Arthur glared at me fiercely. Before he could speak, I interrupted him. Who's knocking outside? Is it the police? Honey, quickly take off your clothes and hide in the wardrobe. I'll handle the police. Arthur's expression softened a bit, and he grabbed my hand excitedly. Wife, I'm counting on you. Staring at his retreating back, I sneered quietly to myself, then turned and opened the door. Who are you looking for? 3 police officers stood outside, staring at me sternly. Is Mr. Arthur home? I nervously lowered my head, my eyes unconsciously glancing at the clothes on the floor. He's not here, he's not home. The police pushed past me and walked into the house. Soon, the police found Arthur completely naked in the wardrobe. They handcuffed Arthur, and with tear-blurred eyes, I lunged forward. No, you can't take my husband away. How could the police possibly listen to me? They forcibly took Arthur away. My 2-year-old daughter heard the commotion and came out of the room. Looking at her adorable little face, I held her tightly, my heart aching. She seemed a bit frightened and asked me in a small voice, Mommy, why are you crying? I held her close in my arms and said, It's nothing, Mommy is happy. Living my life over again, these people who owe me debts should be properly accounted for. Before dawn, the front door was being knocked on loudly. I comforted my daughter and got up to open the door. My father-in-law and mother-in-law stormed forward, demanding, Arthur has been arrested by the police, and you still have the nerve to sleep? These 2 old men still have the nerve to show up? In the previous life, Arthur unilaterally divorced me. When my father heard the news, he rushed to my mother-in-law's house to demand an explanation. These 2 old men turned it around and accused me of being unchaste, even saying I went to prison and tarnished their reputation. My father was so angry that he had a heart attack. After he came home, he was deeply troubled, and before long, he fell ill and passed away. When he died, Arthur and the others didn't inform me, so I didn't even get the chance to see him one last time. I hate those two old men with a passion. When Arthur got into trouble, my heart was shattered. How could I not be anxious? Last night, I was going to take the blame for Arthur, but the police had solid evidence, so there was nothing I could do. My mother-in-law eyed me coldly. Arthur told you to inform me, so why didn't you do it? No wonder those two old folks arrived so quickly. It turns out Arthur got anxious and notified them himself. Now they've come right to the door. You're both old, I was afraid of scaring you. My mother-in-law was about to speak, but I cut her off. Don't rush. My best friend Chloe has relatives working at the police station. I'll give them a call and ask. When I mentioned Chloe, my mother-in-law's eyes immediately lit up. Then you should contact Chloe right away. It seemed the old lady had long known about her son's affair with this gold digger. I immediately contacted Chloe and asked her to come over. Once everyone was here, I could catch them all in one sweep. I wouldn't let a single one of these scumbags go. In less than half an hour, Chloe arrived at the house. How is Arthur? How could something like this happen? Heh. My husband is actually more proactive than I am. I suppressed my anger and said to the group, before you came, I contacted the victim's family. To get them to issue a letter of forgiveness, we need to pay $800,000. $800,000? Why don't they just rob it then? My mother-in-law jumped up excitedly. In my previous life, the main reason I ended up in prison for so long was that the victim's family was unwilling to settle. I always thought they just wanted me behind bars and refused to issue a letter of forgiveness. Later, I found out it was Arthur who didn't want to pay. He wanted me to serve more years in prison to repay the debt. Since God gave me a second chance at life, I naturally have to return to Arthur what he deserves. Right now, saving Arthur is the priority. If the family is willing to forgive, and Chloe's relatives can pull some strings, maybe this matter can be resolved. My mother-in-law glared at me angrily. Then why aren't you rushing to get the money? I shrugged helplessly. I don't have any money. Before my mother-in-law could get anxious, I turned to Chloe for help. Chloe, all the money in our family is controlled by Arthur. I don't have a single cent right now. Can you lend me some money first? I'll pay you back once Arthur is out. Chloe was a bit reluctant but couldn't resist my persistent persuasion. She had a secret too. She was in the car when Arthur had his accident last night. In my previous life, I only found out about this at the moment of death. That's why I called her over immediately this time. Right now, she's most afraid that if Arthur gets into trouble, she'll be implicated and their secret will be exposed. She's currently working in a government office, and if this blows up because of me, her future will be ruined. Chloe hesitated and said, I can only help with $200,000. I looked at her with deep gratitude. Chloe, Arthur will definitely not forget this kindness from you. If Arthur really makes it out alive, I'll kindly play matchmaker for them. A bitch with a dog, a perfect match for eternity. They're so well suited, it would be a pity if they weren't together. After dealing with that little bitch, I turned my attention to my father-in-law and mother-in-law. My mother-in-law looked at me bluntly. Arthur got into such a big mess, your father should help out. Doesn't he have a pension? It's time to use it. She then turned her gaze to my dad. Mother-in-law, I've already contacted my dad. His pension is all invested in financial products, and it takes a week to withdraw. He promised me that as soon as the money arrives, he'll transfer it immediately. A week later, Arthur had already been tried. My father-in-law and mother-in-law were frantic and told me to hand over the $200,000 Chloe had lent, and they would figure out the rest themselves. I immediately handed over the money and actively provided the location of the hospital where the victim was. You need to go quickly. Whether it's kneeling and begging for mercy or being beaten and scolded by the other party, you must make sure they accept this money and get a letter of forgiveness, understand? Hearing this, my mother-in-law's face flickered with fear. I added, you must also suit the victim's family well, and the follow-up work can't stop. Even if you have to be a beast of burden, you have to ask for their forgiveness. A trace of discomfort flashed across Chloe's face, then she advised me, Serena, Auntie and the others are so old. This kind of thing isn't suitable for them to handle. You should go instead. But I hesitated and glanced at my mother-in-law. The next second, she shoved the card into my hand, you go. I was secretly pleased, but had to pretend to be reluctant. Having endured so much, my mother-in-law would never suspect I had such boldness. She scolded again, why aren't you going yet? Do you not want to save Arthur? I'm going right away. After saying that, I went inside, picked up my daughter, and prepared to leave. Seeing me with my daughter, my mother-in-law's face flickered with suspicion. You're going to see the victim's family, why bring this girl along? I feigned helplessness and said, Mom, Faye is so little. The other side might feel sorry for our child and maybe ask for a few thousand less. Hearing my reasoning, my mother-in-law nodded approvingly. You're not completely clueless. Hurry up and go. I quickly took my daughter in my arms and left, not daring to stop for a moment. My daughter is my weakness, only after settling her and my father can I freely deal with these scumbags. As soon as I left home, I immediately transferred the money from my bank card. Looking at the balance on my phone, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Consider this $800,000 as compensation for my youth. Want Arthur to come out? Dream on. The real show is yet to come. Next, I'll take my time playing with them. I disappeared for an entire morning, and my father-in-law and mother-in-law nearly blew up my phone with calls. Chloe was also trying to reach me through various channels. By evening, I took the initiative to contact Chloe. I gave her an address and told her to come find me alone, and absolutely not to inform my father-in-law or mother-in-law. There was a knock at the door. I got up and opened a crack, and Chloe was standing outside. I sized her up, making sure she was alone before letting her in. As soon as she walked in, Chloe complained unhappily, Serena, what on earth are you doing? Not answering calls, not replying to messages, are you planning to disappear from the world? I crossed my arms and stared at her. Maybe realizing her tone was too harsh, Chloe suddenly softened, Serena, I'm just so worried about you that I got worked up. Arthur cheated on me, I said abruptly, startling Chloe. She looked at me in surprise. How did you know? I happened to see the transfer records on his phone, and the couple's hotel he booked for Valentine's Day. I'm quite sure she's cheating. But I haven't found out who the mistress is yet. Hearing my last words, Chloe visibly relaxed. She asked me, so what are you going to do? I said coldly, Arthur is unkind, and I am unjust, let him rot in jail. As for that mistress, I will definitely find her. Chloe turned pale with fright, her eyes staring blankly ahead. I gave her shoulder a sharp shake, and she jumped up in alarm. Chloe, what are you thinking? Why do you look so strange? Chloe looked guilty, avoiding my gaze. Nothing, I'm just surprised that Arthur would cheat too. Haha, wasn't she surprised when the two of them were tangled up together? Chloe, do me a favor, I want to divorce Arthur. Chloe suddenly looked up at me, divorce? Isn't Arthur in detention right now? How can you get a divorce? As long as I get evidence of Arthur's infidelity, I can file for divorce. Mentioning evidence almost scared Chloe to death. She asked me what evidence I had. I told her that Arthur had once taken his mistress to the new house to spend the night. The surveillance at the new house should have captured those scenes. Only Arthur and my father-in-law and mother-in-law had keys to that house. To get the evidence, I decided to bring a locksmith to forcibly open the door and asked her to help me stall my father-in-law and mother-in-law at their place. Chloe readily agreed, then asked me when I would pay her back the $200,000. The money she had secretly exchanged with Arthur over the years was far more than that. And she still had the nerve to ask me for money? However, I couldn't afford to fall out with her just yet. I said, once I've divided the assets with Arthur, I'll pay you back. Chloe was helpless, but feeling guilty, she didn't dare ask me for money again. Late at night, Chloe called me, asking why I hadn't gone to the new house to get the evidence. Was she trying to lure me into a trap? I asked her back, how do you know I didn't go to the new house? There was a long silence on the phone until I took the initiative to give her an excuse. Chloe, you must care about me. You secretly followed me to the new house, saw me turn around and leave without going in, didn't you? Chloe quickly said yes, then changed her tone to ask why I had turned around and left. I said I saw the lights on at home and guessed someone was inside. Chloe, don't you think it's too much of a coincidence? Could someone have leaked information? Chloe didn't dare answer and changed the subject. She asked where I was, but I didn't tell her. I made up an excuse and hung up the phone. I slept for who knows how many hours before a knock came at the door. I got up and opened it. My father-in-law and mother-in-law stood outside, their faces ashen. My mother-in-law stared at me with cold eyes and said, "You wretch, how dare you run off with the money?" As soon as she finished speaking, my mother-in-law pulled a stick from behind her and swung it at me. I moved quickly, turning around to dodge. My mother-in-law lost her balance and fell down. Struggling to get up, she lunged at me again. "Serena, you wicked woman, you won't save my son and you ran off with the money." I walked over to the sofa and sat down, quietly listening to her curses. If my father-in-law and mother-in-law managed to find this place, it must have been with the help of my good best friend, right? My father-in-law was much calmer compared to my mother-in-law. He grabbed her and said sarcastically, "Can't you see she's deaf? Save your breath. If she's cheating us out of money, just call the police and have her arrested. Once Arthur is out, he won't let her off." My mother-in-law wholeheartedly agreed. "Right, call the police and have her locked up. Look at her dying father and daughter, how are they supposed to live without that wretched woman? That vicious old woman, fine if she dislikes me, but to hate her own granddaughter like this is unforgivable. No wonder after I went to prison, she let that bitch Chloe abuse my daughter without a care." The fury in my heart had nowhere to vent, so I raised my hand and slapped my mother-in-law across the face. She was knocked to the ground by my blow. Staring at me in shock, she said, "How dare you hit me?" I rushed forward and delivered a kick. "I'm not just hitting you, I'll kick you, you spiteful old woman. Try insulting my daughter again and see what happens." If it weren't for the fact that killing someone means going to jail, I would have beaten these two old people to death today. My father-in-law stomped his foot in anger and took out his phone, saying he was going to call the police. I shouted angrily, "Go ahead and call the police, let them thoroughly investigate where that money came from." Hearing my words, my father-in-law stopped what he was doing and looked at me in surprise. I gave a cold smile. "What's the matter? Afraid to hit me now? Call the police. Tell them I scammed you out of money and have them check exactly where this money came from, and also thoroughly investigate the rest of the money left in your accounts." My father-in-law panicked, his hand gripping the phone trembling uncontrollably. "What exactly do you know?" I said coldly, "After all, I shared a bed with Arthur, I know a thing or two about the dirty things he's done. As for what Arthur did at the company, I really don't know the specifics. In the previous life, when I got out of prison, Arthur and the others had already made it big. In just a few short years, they were living in villas, driving luxury cars, and sitting on millions in assets. To take revenge on my husband, I kept digging and finally found out that he was secretly transferring company assets. Before I could get to the bottom of it, Arthur and Chloe teamed up and killed me. Last night, I deliberately had Chloe coax my father-in-law and mother-in-law to the new house, while I went to their place to look for evidence. Arthur said nothing to me, but he had no defenses against his father. All the materials and evidence of his misdeeds are hidden at my father-in-law and mother-in-law's house. These two men are truly heartless. The evidence I have right now isn't enough, but it's more than enough to scare these two old folks. I spoke vaguely, but my father-in-law thought I really had some evidence, and his face turned pale with fear. He gave my mother-in-law a look, and the old lady's attitude toward me immediately softened. "Serena, you've been part of our family for so long. I've always treated you like a daughter. Now that Arthur is in trouble, how can you act like this? What about the bond between husband and wife? He's also Faye's father, isn't he? I snorted disdainfully. Sentiment? When he's out there fooling around, finding mistresses, does he ever care about my feelings? My mother-in-law's expression softened a bit, and she coaxed me placatingly. She asked me to forgive Arthur this once, for the sake of her daughter. She had the nerve to bring up her daughter, who was the one calling me a little bitch just now. What a shameless old hag. You two go ahead if you have nothing else to do. Let me be alone for a while. My father-in-law and mother-in-law, afraid I would call the police, didn't dare to mention the money again and soon found an excuse to leave. Watching their hurried backs, I guessed they were probably going to destroy the evidence. Let's see who's faster. Serena, there's news, come quickly. Receiving a call from my friend Helen, I rushed to the hospital immediately. Living through it all again, I finally understood who around me were human and who were ghosts. Helen, Chloe, and I grew up together, but my relationship with Helen was never as close as it was with Chloe. Chloe said Helen was too arrogant and warned me not to get too close to her. Later, I realized it was because Chloe was jealous of Helen, thinking her family was better off. Whenever Helen showed up, Chloe would be overshadowed, and that was why she didn't want to associate with Helen. In my previous life, when I got out of prison, the only person who helped me was Helen. Penniless as I was, if it weren't for her support, I would have starved to death on the streets long ago. Serena, I turned my head and saw Helen. She handed me her phone, showing me the video she had taken, her words dripping with anger. I never expected Chloe to be so despicable. After knowing you for over 10 years, she would actually do something like this. In the video, my mother-in-law was accompanying Chloe, the two of them arm in arm as they went to the hospital's obstetrics and gynecology department. In my previous life, when I came out, Chloe and Arthur's child was already 3 years old. In other words, I had just gone to prison when she was already pregnant. Not long after I went to prison, Arthur couldn't wait to come and ask me for a divorce. He said it was for the sake of our daughter's education, that he didn't want the mother section on her school records to say her mother was serving time in prison. Thinking of our poor daughter, I agreed. But the truth is, Chloe is pregnant, and it's a boy. That's why Arthur is suddenly in a rush to divorce me and marry her. With Chloe's temper, if she found out she was pregnant, she would definitely go after Arthur. Now that Arthur has been caught, her target will shift to my mother-in-law. After settling my daughter that day, I immediately went to find Helen. She was still Chloe's neighbor, so I asked her to keep an eye on Chloe. Helen, thank you so much this time. Helen comfortingly patted my shoulder. No need to thank me. Chloe went too far. What I can't stand the most are people who stab you in the back. What are you planning to do next? To succeed in the divorce, I had to get evidence of his affair. The child in Chloe's belly was the strongest proof. With this child, plus the video from the dashcam, I had enough evidence. I'm planning to get a divorce. Helen nodded in agreement. A man like that definitely needs to be punished properly. Don't let Chloe off easily either, she's terrible, treating you like a fool. I certainly won't let that bitch off. Thinking about what she did to my daughter, I can't help but want to skin her alive. My father had an accident. When I got the call, I collapsed to the ground. If it weren't for a kind passerby, I wouldn't have even known how to get a taxi to the hospital. Helen, is my father okay? In the hospital, I tightly grasped Helen's hand, helplessly staring at the operating room. Helen dared not answer my question, only continuously comforting me while apologizing. Serena, I'm sorry, I didn't expect to be followed. This wasn't Helen's fault. Arthur knew the address of my hometown. He was well aware that my father and daughter were my weak spots, and that the hometown was not safe. So I asked Helen to help me find a place to temporarily shelter them. I looked around but didn't see my daughter, my heart tightening in my throat. Where's Faye? Faye was taken by her grandmother. I was in a rush to bring Uncle to the hospital and didn't have time to look after Faye. My mind was in chaos. I wanted to go and get my daughter back, but I couldn't stop worrying about my father in the operating room. It must be Chloe. Only she would pay attention to Helen and thus find out where my dad is. The fury inside me surged to its peak in an instant. If I didn't tear that bitch apart, I wasn't worthy of being a mother. The surgery was over, and my dad was brought in just in time. For now, there was no immediate danger to his life. Hearing this news, I secretly breathed a sigh of relief. After asking Helen to take care of my father, I headed straight to my in-laws' house. There was no way I would let my daughter fall into the hands of these scumbags. When my in-laws opened the door and saw me, their faces immediately darkened. "What are you doing here?" I pushed her aside, intending to enter, but was firmly blocked outside the door. "Bitch, our home can't hold you. Get out of here. Give my daughter back to me. Otherwise, don't blame me for doing something extreme." Unfazed by my threat, my mother-in-law said, "Faye is my granddaughter, and she'll only learn bad things from a bitch like you. Time is limited, and I don't want to waste too much breath on this old woman. I'll ask you one last time, do you want to give my daughter back to me?" My mother-in-law hadn't responded when Chloe's voice came from behind. "Serena, what are you doing? How can you talk to Auntie like that?" I slapped Chloe hard across the face. She covered her face, looking at me in shock. "Serena, are you crazy? You even hit me." "I'm talking about you, you filthy bitch. Don't you have any idea what you've done?" She avoided my gaze nervously, still stubbornly denying, "What are you talking about? I don't know anything at all. Let's destroy everything together. Even if I die, I'll drag this group of scum down to hell with me. If you don't know, then open your phone and take a good look yourself. Everyone knows all the dirty things you've done." Chloe gave me a suspicious glance, then hurriedly unlocked her phone. Her eyes widened in shock, her hand trembling as she held the phone. "How could this be?" You're crazy." I sent the video from the dashcam to Chloe's work group chat. In the video, the two of them were as wild as could be in the car. Chloe's breathy voice was mixed in, "You love me so passionately, aren't you afraid your wife will find out when you get home?" Arthur said, "Don't mention that woman, it's a buzzkill. With her loose, rotten flesh, how could she compare to a demon like you?" So all my years of hard work amounted to nothing more than a woman with loose, rotten flesh in Arthur's eyes. The reason I didn't explode the moment Arthur was imprisoned, but instead played along with them, was to buy time and gather all the evidence in my favor. That's right, I went crazy, driven mad by you. My dad and Faye are my bottom line. If you dare lay a hand on them, then we'll all die together. Seeing me closing in, Chloe nervously stepped back, looking at me in terror. "When did you find out?" I grabbed her collar and demanded, "We've known each other for over 10 years. I considered you my best friend. Why are you doing this to me? Chloe, are you even human?" Chloe suddenly laughed. She even looked at me with a hint of pride. "Who told you to brag in front of me every day, talking about how much your husband loves you and how well he takes care of the family?" I just had to lift a finger, and he took the bait. Was I bragging? I treated her like a sister, hoping she would find happiness, urging her to get married soon. But in her eyes, it turned into me showing off? Just for that, you shamelessly seduced someone else's husband? You're really despicable. Chloe stomped her foot in frustration. "I advise you to take the video down immediately and say you deliberately framed me, or I will make you regret it." I laughed. Everyone has their pride, but just how thick-skinned does Chloe have to be to say something like that? "Then tell me, how exactly are you going to make me regret it?" Chloe glared at me viciously. "I can make sure you never see your daughter for the rest of your life." I panicked, my previously calm emotions thrown into chaos. I looked at Chloe anxiously, my voice trembling with fear. "Is my daughter in your hands? What have you done to her? Using my daughter to threaten me, isn't that despicable?" Chloe nodded smugly. "That's right, your daughter is in my hands. If you don't obey and do as I say, don't blame me for what happens to her." I turned to my father-in-law and mother-in-law standing behind me. "No matter what, Faye is your granddaughter. How can you treat her like this?" My mother-in-law sneered coldly. "Chloe is carrying our family's male heir. You better do as Chloe demands, or don't blame us for being harsh with your daughter." Breaking her limbs would be the mildest punishment. If you cross us, we'll kill her outright. That old woman, her heart is truly ruthless. Chloe urged me impatiently. She was like an ant on a hot pan. Every second of delay meant one more person would see her ugly true face. Serena, I advise you to hurry up, or be prepared to collect your daughter's body. I stared at her and laughed out loud. She looked at me in confusion and asked, "What are you laughing at?" I told her to turn around and look. Behind us, several police officers were already walking toward us. Chloe still hadn't quite grasped what was happening. She just looked at me in surprise. "You called the police?" I held up my phone. The screen showing the call was still connected. "Chloe, I called the station as soon as you arrived. The police have been listening to our entire conversation. The evidence is clear that you and those two old men kidnapped my daughter. I suggest you start cooperating." Did she really think I was a fool? Knowing full well they took my daughter to threaten me, would I just walk right into their trap? I had already called the police on my way from the hospital. Chloe dared to have someone follow Helen and threaten me by taking my daughter, so she must pay the legal price for her actions. If I reported that my mother-in-law had taken my granddaughter, the police would only see it as a family dispute, and there would be no way to bring Chloe to justice. Only by making Chloe admit to kidnapping my daughter herself could she be put behind bars. Having lived 2 lifetimes, no one knows Chloe better than I do. Her pride, her arrogance, her disdain for me, all destined her for a bad end. The police revealed silver handcuffs, ready to take Chloe away. Chloe panicked, stammering in defense, "Officer, she was the one who lured me. I really didn't." The officer looked at her sternly. "Chloe, a young child named Faye, forcibly taken by you, has already been found in your home." Chloe was stunned. She never expected the police to act so swiftly. The reason I was stalling with Chloe was to buy time, so the police could find my daughter and rescue her as quickly as possible. My daughter was their strongest bargaining chip to threaten me, knowing I would rush to my in-laws' house. Of course, they wouldn't leave my daughter there. The most likely place was Chloe's home. When the police told me through the earpiece that my daughter had been found, I secretly breathed a sigh of relief, stopped pretending with Chloe, and laid everything out for her directly. Chloe's face instantly turned ashen. She stared at me blankly, then began to scream hysterically, "No, I don't want to go to jail." No one expected Chloe to assault the police, let alone that she would take me hostage to threaten them. Chloe grabbed the fruit knife from the dining table and pressed it against my neck. The distance between us was too close, and the incident happened so suddenly that neither of us could react in time. Chloe was clearly upset. She shouted angrily at the police, "Step back, stay away from me, or I'll kill her." The police tried to calm Chloe down, doing their best not to provoke her. "I don't want to go to jail, all of you get lost." Chloe waved the sharp knife, signaling the police to back off. The sharp blade cut across my neck, and blood instantly seeped out. For my safety, the police dared not make a move. Everyone was trying to persuade Chloe, but her emotions had already collapsed. She only thought about taking me hostage and escaping. At the critical moment, I suddenly asked Chloe, "The person you're most jealous of isn't Helen, it's me, right?" Chloe froze, staring at me dumbly. She didn't want me to see the most vulnerable part of her heart. "What nonsense are you talking about? Why would I be jealous of you? Your beloved husband, the one you love, is me. You're just a fool I've been playing around with. What do I have to be jealous of?" I calmly laughed out loud. "You're jealous that I have loving parents and a harmonious family. Unlike you, who grew up in a painful broken home. Your dad cheated, and every time he was out fooling around with other women, your mom would take it out on you, using you as a punching bag. Chloe, you're a complete and utter pitiful creature. You lost so thoroughly." Chloe went mad, furiously shouting at me, "Shut up, you bitch," I said, "Shut up." At the height of the chaos, I suddenly looked up ahead and shouted, "Chloe, your mother is here." Chloe froze for a moment, instinctively looking up. Seizing the moment, the police officer working with me immediately lunged forward and pulled me out. Chloe snapped back to reality, still struggling desperately. Ah. A painful scream echoed. While struggling with the police, Chloe accidentally stabbed herself in the stomach with the knife in her hand. The mother-in-law, who was being restrained nearby, turned pale at the sight and screamed, "Call an ambulance quickly, my grandson must be okay." I came to the prison to visit Arthur, bringing my lawyer along. Through the glass window, Arthur glared at me with venomous eyes. "Bitch, how dare you show your face here?" I had the lawyer submit a divorce agreement to Arthur. "Sign it." Seeing the agreement I handed over, Arthur burst into wild laughter. "You want a divorce and to take most of my assets? Dream on. If you want a divorce, I'll make sure you don't get your way." I lifted my eyes to scrutinize Arthur. How was I so blind back then, unable to see that the man before me was a scoundrel? I looked Arthur up and down coldly, my words icy and devoid of any emotion. "Giving you the divorce agreement is just a formality. If you refuse, I can file for divorce at any time. Your affair is already a fact, the divorce is inevitable." Arthur was furious. He pounded the table, shouting that he was going to kill me. After being stopped by the prison guard, he switched to threats, "Give me a few months, and I'll be out. Then we'll see if I kill you or not." I laughed, mocking his naivety. "Do you think no one knows what you've done? If you want out, it'll be in 10 years. Arthur stared at me in shock, his eyes full of disbelief. "Bitch, what exactly have you done?" I said, "The USB drive you hid in your dad's study, I've already handed it over to your company's boss." Arthur, who had just stood up, instantly collapsed back into his chair. No one understood better than him what this meant. He had secretly been diverting company assets while embezzling funds from the company's project. After I submitted the evidence of his crimes, their company decided to take action against him. With embezzled funds amounting to tens of millions, the sum was enough to keep Arthur in prison for 10 years. He wants to take revenge on me, waiting 10 years until he can find me again. Arthur was scared. He began to cry, confessing his mistakes to me, kneeling and begging for mercy. "Honey, I was wrong. I just made a mistake every man would make. Why do you have to be so ruthless with me? Please, help me. When I get out, I promise to change for the better." Just moments ago, he was shouting he would kill me, and now he's begging. His ability to flip his face is quite impressive. Unfortunately, I had long seen the true nature of this scumbag. His tearful display was truly nauseating. I don't want to stay in this lousy place for even a minute. I'll leave it to this piece of trash to enjoy on his own. The agreement is yours to keep, let me know once you've signed it. He was still pleading with me desperately, calling my name repeatedly. I stopped in my tracks and turned around to look. He thought I had changed my mind, looking at me with joy. "Honey, have you thought it through? Right? You're going to help me, aren't you?" I gave a cold laugh. "I just forgot to tell you one piece of news." The scumbag paused in surprise and asked, "What?" I slowly said, "Chloe is pregnant, it's a boy." "What a pity, she stabbed herself to death." Arthur completely lost it, lunging at me like a mad beast. He forgot that we now belong to two different worlds. No matter how mad he gets, he can't pose the slightest threat to me. The glass door of the prison separates him from me. The rest of his life is destined to be spent in prison, reforming himself and repenting for the mistakes he made. Stepping out of the prison, I saw my father and my daughter waiting. After treatment, my father's condition has been effectively controlled, and his health is recovering day by day. My daughter saw me and happily waved her hands. "I want mommy to hold me." I bent down, picked up my daughter, and held her tightly in my arms. The joy of having her back made my eyes well up. I said I would protect my daughter completely and ensure her lifelong well-being, and I have done it. My dad saw my eyes red and felt heartbroken. "Daughter, everything is over now. Don't be sad." I shook my head. "Dad, I'm not sad, I'm happy. From now on, the three of us will live happily together, how wonderful. Reborn into this life, the two most important people in my life are safely by my side. What could be more worth my happiness than this?" Now, even my tears are tears of joy. I swear, I will be their strongest support, not letting them suffer even the slightest harm. Arthur was sentenced to 10 years. Chloe's crime was even more serious than his, and she was directly sentenced to 12 years. When the verdict was announced, Arthur's parents fainted in the courtroom. His father suffered a sudden heart attack and passed away a week after returning home from the hospital. Although his mother didn't die, she couldn't withstand the successive blows and completely lost her mind. Following the court's ruling, Arthur and I successfully divorced. Custody of our daughter Faye was also awarded to me. Arthur's assets were all frozen and seized by the court due to involvement in financial fraud. However, this did not cause me any substantial harm. I moved back to live with my father. Helen returned the $800,000 she had been entrusted to keep for me. Originally, this money was partly Chloe's and partly transferred from my father-in-law and mother-in-law's accounts. It had nothing to do with Arthur. With this money as a safety net, my life became much easier. My father's health improved day by day, and in his free time, he would help me take care of my daughter. He would pick her up and drop her off at school every day, allowing me to go out to work and realize my own value. My salary wasn't high, but it was enough to cover the family expenses. Most importantly, the company was close to home, giving me more time to spend with my family. Although I went through dark times, when the clouds cleared, my sky was bright and clear. The future was full of sunshine and hope. The end.